book lovers, it is G-Swizz here, and I'm here today with some holiday romance recommendations. If you didn't know, this is a 7 on Sunday topic, and I'm the host of 7 on Sunday. I will link the Goodreads page down in the description where you can check it out and you can participate in a topic in the future, or you can suggest a topic. And we have officially moved out of the spooky season. I know, sad times, but we are moving into some bright holiday times. I mean, I could do these recommendations in December. However, I do plan on using December as a end of year wrap-up month where we participate in some prompts that have to do with our yearly reading and our end of year stats, all that stuff, etc. So I'm using November to do the holiday related topics for that reason. So I'm very much looking forward to getting straight into these recommendations. I've read a few holiday romances throughout this last year. However, I feel like I could read more, and that's why next week I will be doing a TBR as well, because I feel like there are so many other holiday romances to explore. However, if you are wanting to know the ones that I recommend, then stick around, because I'm going to talk about the ones that I recommend and that I really enjoyed and the ones that really put me in the spirit of Christmas and the holiday season. So I guess without further ado, let's get straight into these recommendations. I'll be recommending all sorts of holiday romances, whether they are standalones or some holiday spin-off novellas that just so happen to take place in a series or a specific world. I'll go into the novellas later, but we will start off with the standalones slash companion books. I'm going to start off with a YA pick. I've got Love in Winter Wonderland by Arango. I really enjoyed this one. So this one just so happens to take place in a bookstore called Wonderland, I believe. So that is essentially the main setting for the story, but it's just a cutesy romance that sparks between these two main characters, and I found it to be absolutely cute. It's very clean, so if you are looking for something that is less spicy, that takes place in high school, then I would definitely recommend Love in Winter Wonderland. I think that this one is just very cutesy. I appreciate it the most, I think, because of the bookish vibes it gave off. It felt very magical at the end of the day. I do have to say though, I did get frustrated with the male protagonist sometimes. I think it's because at the very beginning of this book, I believe he's in a relationship with someone else, and then he goes through a breakup, and then he ends up with our female protagonist. And I mean, I do appreciate their romantic dynamic together. I think that they suit each other, but I just found him to be a little bit annoying. But overall, I did still enjoy the story. And additionally, another reason why this book stands out from some of the rest is because every chapter header has a different song from an R&B Christmas playlist. So here we've got Every Year, Every Christmas by Luther Vandross. And another playlist song example would be What Christmas Means to Me by Stevie Wonder. Every chapter starts off with a different song, kind of as its subject header, and it's really cool because then you can kind of go back, like if you have Spotify or Apple Music, and then check those songs out for yourself. And there were a few that I recognized, like Oh Santa by Mariah Carey, and there were a few others as well. Oh Holy Night by Mariah Carey. Oh my goodness, you can't forget that one. Yeah, there are just so many different songs here that are recommended, and best of all, they're not the traditional Christmas carols that you would hear in Christmas retail. These ones, I believe, have some sort of R&B twist to them. I appreciated that about this book. I would highly recommend this book if you're wanting a very cute, fun time, and if you're wanting some good Christmas carol recommendations. I personally think that Abiola Bello has a great taste in Christmas carols. And the next holiday romance that I have to recommend is In a Holidays by Christina Lauren. Now, this isn't necessarily my favorite Christina Lauren book, but I still very much enjoyed it. What I liked the most out of In a Holidays was the holiday vibe setting. I believe they all have to stay in this cabin or this holiday house, and from what I remember, the romance sparks between the protagonist and someone she grew up with, a family friend. So two families come together for Christmas and spend time in this holiday house slash cabin. It very much gives me the Summer I Turned Pretty vibes, but for Christmas, and we're following adults as the primary characters. I believe this might be a Groundhog Day scenario as well, from what I remember. Yep, this one definitely involves a time loop. It's all coming back to me. Oh my goodness. But I very much appreciate the second chance that the protagonist receives in the story to make things better. And I would highly recommend it to those who are wanting a new Christina Lauren book to read, or for those who are wanting to get into Christina Lauren's writing. I think that this is a perfect place to start. It was funny, it was cute, it was adorable. I think my friend actually read this somewhere in the middle of this year. She's like, I finally read In a Holidays. I'm like, what are you doing? It's July or August. But she really enjoyed enjoyed it, and you know what? It definitely put me in the mood to try this one out again, so I think I'm gonna try this one out again sometime this year, but if not, I will reread it for the years to come. And the next holiday romance I have to recommend is one I read last year, and that, my friends, is Lovelight Farms by B.K. Borison. I actually listened to this one on audiobook before it got picked up by a publisher, and this year it has officially been repackaged in traditionally publishing format. It was picked up by Pan Macmillan. Exciting stuff. And this one has a very interesting concept. Pretty much we are following a protagonist who loves this farm called Lovelight Farms, and it gets interesting. Quick interjection from the editing room. As I was editing this video, I realized I did not synopsize Lovelight Farms properly. Essentially, in Lovelight Farms, we are following a protagonist who is wanting to enter in a competition to help fund the farm, but she lies in order to make Lovelight Farms seem a little bit more romantic. So she pretends that she owns Lovelight Farms with her boyfriend, but the catch is she doesn't have a boyfriend, and that's where Luca comes in, and that's where her fake dating relationship comes in, and Luca just so happens to be her best friend. And as much as I loved and adored Lovelight Farms, I will give you guys a heads up. This is a friends to lovers romance where we don't get the male character's POV, and I kind of feel a little bit sad about that, because as much as I do appreciate a friends to lovers romance, in my personal opinion, friends to lovers romances need to be done when there's a dual POV or it's in third person POV. So go into this just kind of expecting for the protagonist to tell you how much she loves the guy as a friend and stuff, and she doesn't want to lose him as a friend because they have a history and all that jazz. But overall, it was still a very fun time, and I plan on rereading it this year because I want to read the rest of the series, and I just want to remember all the side characters because the rest of the books in the series follow the other side characters. I don't believe the other two books are holiday themed, but this first one is. So if you're wanting to get into a new series that isn't necessarily a sequel, and if you don't know where to start in terms of holiday romances, Lovelight Farms, I believe, is perfect for you. And the next holiday romance I have to recommend is a very short and sweet one, and that, my friends, is Window Shopping by Tessa Bailey. I also plan on reading Wreck the Halls this year. That one has been recently published, I believe, as I've posted this video. I'm looking forward to reading that one. However, I believe Window Shopping is Tessa Bailey's first holiday romance, but I could be wrong. I probably need to dive further into Tessa Bailey's backlist to see whether or not that is correct. But I really enjoyed Window Shopping. I kind of just wish it was a little bit longer, but if you're wanting something that is short and sweet and ultimately somewhat satisfying, I would recommend Window Shopping. Also, this cover really captured my attention. I am so obsessed with this beautiful cover. This is actually the independently published edition because I purchased this before it got picked up by HarperCollins. We are pretty much following someone who just got released from prison and she's looking for a job, and then a romance sparks up between her and a retail store owner. I just think that this was absolutely adorable, and it has a good second chance element to it as well. Not necessarily second chance in terms of romance, but second chance in terms of starting over. I like that about a good Christmas story because sometimes Christmas is about second chances. Overall, I really enjoyed this one, and I would highly recommend this one if you're wanting a nice quick read or just another Tessa Bailey novel to read, because I love Tessa Bailey. I find her books to be very comforting, and if you find her books to be very comforting as well, then take comfort in Window Shopping because I did. And speaking of comfort reads, I absolutely adore A Merry Little Meet Cute by Julie Murphy and Sierra Simone, and I have to say that out of all the books on this list, this is probably my favorite one. I really enjoyed this one, and I think it's because out of all the books, I believe it's the longest. It is around a 400-page novel, but I do have to mention that out of all these books, this one is probably the steamiest, especially because it makes reference to the adult industry, because our female protagonist actually works in the adult industry, and it's very interesting because you get an insight into that industry. But see, here's the thing. The synopsis of this book is that our female protagonist actually gets casted in a, I believe, faith-based Hallmark style movie to do with the holidays, when obviously she's an adult film star. But then we have the male protagonist of the story who is a former boy band member, so he gets casted in this film with her, and they both know who each other are. So the female protagonist has a huge crush on the male protagonist because she was fangirling on him so hard as a younger girl, so he's just kind of always been her celebrity crush. And the male male protagonist knows exactly who the female protagonist is and is very much attracted to her. A romance sparks between them two, and they have to act in this film together, and it's just so funny and so cute and so coincidental that this book is so hilarious. My goodness. I was laughing so hard reading A Merry Little Meet Cute. Julie Murphy and Sierra Simone are a match made in heaven. They did an excellent job with this holiday rom-com, and I know a lot of people say that this book is just a little bit too long for a holiday romance. I disagree. I think that it was the perfect size, and these two are the perfect pairing. I mean that for both the writers and the characters that were written in the story, and I loved the side characters so much. I highly recommend A Merry Little Meet Cute if you are wanting something that is hilarious, but also you are okay with references to the adult industry, and if you're okay with a little bit of steam, because you've got Love in Winter Wonderland, which is appropriate for children. This book right here is not appropriate for children, so if you're wanting something that is much more aged up in terms of rating, then I would highly recommend A Merry Little Meet Cute. And a follow-up to A Merry Little Meet Cute that I have to recommend is a novella titled Snow Place Like LA. Now this isn't necessarily a Christmas themed novella, but this novella follows one of our beautiful side characters, Luca. I absolutely adore Luca in the first book so much, and I can't wait to read the companion sequel, A Holly Jolly Ever After. But at the point that I'm filming this video, I have not yet read A Holly Jolly Ever After, but I did read Snow Place Like LA yesterday for research purposes. But obviously it's not really necessarily a Christmas themed novella, but it does follow some side characters in the first book, and I absolutely adore this novella so much. So if you are wanting a follow-up to A Merry Little Meet Cute, if you've read A Merry Little Meet Cute and had no idea that this novella existed, trust me, I only found out like 2 weeks ago as I'm filming this, then do read Snow Place Like Home. It is very cute, and I believe it leads into A Holly Jolly Ever After, which I will be putting on my TBR for this year. I definitely have to recommend this novella if you loved the fun vibes of A Merry Little Meet Cute, and if you're just wanting something that's a bit more humorous, and this one's also an MM romance as well. It's very sweet, and it definitely gave me the nice wholesome vibes of the first book in the series. And the next holiday romance I have to recommend is actually the 5th book in a romance companion series. However, it can be read as a standalone. It really can be. However, I would highly recommend you read the Bromance Book Club to make your way up to A Very Merry Bromance by Lyssa Kay Adams. This is the 5th book in the Bromance Book Club series. I don't know whether or not this is going to be like the final book in the series. I know we are going to get a reimagining of the historical novel that was featured in the first Bromance Book Club book. However, I kind of want to follow the actual book club even more going forward. But if you have read like maybe 1 or 2 books in the series, if you cannot get enough, please make your way up to A Very Merry Bromance. Or if you are just wanting to read a very cute holiday romance and don't really care to read the rest of the series, then yes, you can read A Very Merry Bromance. But I mean, if you want to get spoiled for the other romances or the other pairings, then okay. Do with that what you will. You can decide for yourself whether or not you want to do that. Overall, A Very Merry Bromance is definitely one of my favorite holiday romances ever. Not just because we are following the Bromance Book Club. I also love this book because I love Colton, and we also met Gretchen in book number 4 of the series, and I like the part that Gretchen had to play in book number 4. I loved getting to know Gretchen, and I loved getting to know her in this story. I just loved getting to know Colton in general and seeing his romance play out. And overall, I very much appreciate the message of A Very Merry Bromance because unfortunately, Gretchen's family is not very nice. However, I really appreciate this book because there's a found family aspect to it. And yeah, overall, it was just very sweet, very cute, and I cannot wait to reread this one eventually because I plan on rereading all the Bromance Book Club books. I am obsessed with the Bromance Book Club books, and I need everyone to read them because they're just so good. This holiday romance was also just as good as the rest, and I would highly recommend it if you are wanting something that's either set within this world or you're just wanting to try something in the Bromance Book Club. You just don't know where to start, but you figured that a holiday romance could get you into it, then, you know, I would recommend it for that reason as well. Or if you're just wanting a good romance in general, A Very Merry Bromance has that for you. The second last book I have to recommend, I'm only going to recommend novellas from here on out. I've got 2 novellas I've got to recommend. First of all, we've got a holiday special here for the Savage Lands series or the Stacey Marie Brown series universe. During my Savage Lands adventure, I ended up reading this 10-page novella called Leather, Thongs, and Honey, A Christmas Carol. And it pretty much follows these little critter creatures that you meet throughout either the Savage Lands series, and I believe some other series as well that Stacey Marie Brown has previously obviously written in this world, and they are trying to put on a Christmas Carol show where certain little critters are trying to play certain characters in a Christmas Carol. And I love how it ends. It's just so funny. This one is just humorous. You don't actually need to read the Savage Land series or any of the series to get this one. It's just funny. It's just weird. And I don't know. This is just a very funny, feel-good time for those who are just wanting a breath of fresh air from the series, because every moment in the Savage Land series is so hyper serious and very dramatic, whereas something like this is just absolutely funny. So I would highly recommend this one for comic relief. This one was just really funny, and I think I'm gonna revisit this one in the future, especially when I go back and read the Savage Lands, or if I read any other book series by Stacey Marie Brown in this world. And last but certainly not least, the final holiday themed book slash novella that I have to recommend for this video today is Of Fate and Fire by Amanda Boucher. Now this novella actually takes place in the Kingmaker Chronicles world, but I have to say it. Okay, this is going to be such an unpopular opinion, but hear me out. It's my opinion, okay? At the end of the day, it's my opinion. It's the best thing that Amanda Boucher has put in the series. No cap. Personally, right? I struggled with the Kingmaker Chronicles. I personally struggled because I really don't like Griffin as a love interest. I think that he's a very toxic love interest, and I think that him and Kat are just not compatible. That's just my personal opinion. A Curse of Queens, I really struggled in terms of the plot. I think that the plot was a little bit unnecessary. So I liked the plot of the original Kingmaker Chronicles trilogy, but I hated the couple that we were following. I just found that I could not stand them. At times, I did struggle with the plot in the actual trilogy, but I did not really struggle with the plot as much as I struggled with A Curse of Queens. However, A Curse of Queens had a great romantic dynamic because I could see a romance slowly blossoming throughout the series for Flynn and Jocasta. I just really did not like the book. I loved the romantic dynamic between the two. I just really did not enjoy the plot of the book. I was really disappointed in the plot, and I don't understand why it was necessary, and I don't know if I'm going to continue on with the Kingmaker Chronicles. However, oh my goodness, this novella, this holiday-themed novella, was the best thing I read in the series. And the love interest we are following in this novella, you're not really meant to like. However, it's meant to be a redemption story for him. He essentially does something terrible in book 3, and as a result, he ends up in the real world in this novella. So this novella is essentially an urban fantasy. Well, I mean, it's technically a high fantasy, it's a portal fantasy, but this specific character lands in our world, and he meets the novella's protagonist, who just so happens to be in our world, and he has to try to adapt to our world. He has to go to a tailor to get a suit and stuff and try to learn the earthly customs, and it's just really funny to see. It very much feels like Thor, or it very much feels like Captain America, essentially. The fish out of water concept is used in this novella, but it's just so cozy, it's so cute. There's the spirit of Christmas in it, there's just some beautiful romantic themes, there's a good fantasy plot in there, and overall it just has a very wholesome romance. It is probably the best thing I've ever read by Amanda Boucher, and that makes me really nervous about anything else that she's written, because I'm very much looking forward to reading her sci-fi series. But I've honestly been very disappointed in the Kingmaker Chronicles, especially because I keep on hearing that it's like everyone's favorite series. However, I do have to say, if you have read the Kingmaker Chronicles, and if you have not yet read this novella, what are you doing? Go read it. If you haven't read the Kingmaker Chronicles, if you're wondering if it's worth it, look, I don't know. I personally cannot have a say on that, but I would highly recommend you check out this novella. I don't think that you need to read the Kingmaker Chronicles to fully understand it. I mean, yes, something happens in Heart on Fire that does lead to the consequence of the male protagonist's actions, and as a result, he does end up in this novella. That all being said, the story still stands alone, and it's still perfect on its own, and I'm just really happy I read it. I was so close to just not reading this. I think after A Curse of Queens, I pretty much mentally checked out, and I was just not feeling it, but I just figured, you know what, I have it on Scribd, I'm gonna listen to it, and I'm so happy I did. It's the best thing I read in the series, and I think that it put me in the right spirit for the holiday. I would highly recommend this one if you're wanting a good feel-good read that just so happens to be a portal fantasy story. It's definitely one of my favorites on this list, for sure. So I guess that's gonna be it for this video today, book lovers. If you happen to stay to the end of the video, leave me the Christmas tree emoji, and if you happen to enjoy this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel if you haven't yet already. Join the amazing community of book lovers. And also, I have social medias. I'm at GSwizzleBooks on Twitter and Instagram, and I'm also Goodreads. That's www.goodreads.com/GSwizzle, and finally, I'm at TikTok. I'm at GSwizzle on TikTok if you want to follow me there for some bookish content. I love you, book lovers, and I will see you later. Peace.
Started out with half and I flipped it in a double. Started out with half half and I flipped it in a double.